will go on with the future urban mobility section of the program, and from electric cars to group travel to autonomous vehicles, new startups are basically reshaping the way we travel. During the next presentation, we will talk about 5 megatrends shaping city transportation, and for this, I'm going to invite on stage Mihai Rotaru, business angel and the founder of Clever Taxi. Mihai, I'm waiting for you. Thank you.
Hello. This is a typical day in Moscow, one of the cities in the world which is best known for traffic jams. Well, unfortunately, this is only the second most traffic jammed city in Europe. Because, guys, you guessed it, we take the cake on this one. Bucharest is the most traffic jammed city in Europe. Sorry for any foreign visitors right now at this conference. So why is this happening? Why is Bucharest so crowded? Well, it's mainly cars, right? Personal cars. Personal cars are probably the worst investment you can make. If you think about it, 95%, according to studies, 95% of the time you own a car, it actually sits in a parking lot and it's not being used. There's few things you buy that are used so little. It's a very inefficient investment, but still we use them a lot to go around the city as well. And that's because, according to studies, public transport sometimes takes double the time going from point A to point B because it is not data-driven, because you don't have a direct link from point A to point B. So people choose to go by car as well. It's not as convenient to go by public transport as it is by car. So this seems like something that we need to change. We need urban transportation that is, the urban transportation matters a lot. It has a direct impact on the economy and on health. 4% of premature deaths are actually caused by traffic and the pollution. And it also has a direct impact on social development, right? And it isn't a good place to live in. So the public transportation revolution is probably the biggest shifts that we'll be seeing in our generation. This is an isochronous map, which was drawn up in 1914. I didn't know what isochronic meant. It basically means how long it takes you to go from London to any other place in the world. And the scale on it is 5 days. The red area is the 5 days area, going up to 40 days. So it took up to 40 days to reach some parts of the Earth, basically 100 years ago. This is the same map in 2016. The red area is much, much larger, but also the scale changed a lot. The scale is now going from half a day to just 1.5 days. So in 1.5 days, you can reach any point in the world at this point. This is the global travel, the global transportation market. And the shift has been of more than one order of magnitude. Now, we haven't seen the same thing in urban transportation. If anything, the urban transportation actually is worse than it was 100 years ago. So, we need to change that. We need urban transportation that is reliable, that is fast, that is efficient. Efficient meaning that the least resources are used to get the most effect. And that is easy to access. Changing modes of transportation, waiting for buses, is not easy of access. And it has to be eco-friendly, because we need to be able to breathe the air as well. This is an industry which is ripe for disruption, and this is what's happening. In 2017 alone, we've seen over $28 billion of investments in startups working in mobility. And the result of that was that over 1 billion persons right now in the world actually use mobility apps. That's a huge shift in only a few years. So how is this driving the revolution? Well, this is only step one, and this is where we are right now. because Uber and e-hailing apps, they're basically incumbents right now. What they have done is only to digitize the transportation. They have only digitized the transportation, meaning that it has brought it to our fingertip in an app, and now we have data about everything that is happening in a city, of everybody that is going from point A to point B. But again, this is what we have right now, and these are the incumbents. This is not the disruption anymore. The real change is coming in the second step, when we are actually using this data in a smart way, and not only optimizing resources, but creating new resources, which are fully data-driven, to create alternative modes of transportation throughout the city. And this is what is happening now. And there's 5 main trends, which I will be showing in the next few slides. And nothing of these can be possible without the first step, which has been just digitizing it. So this is basically public transportation, right? Crowd transportation. This is a very famous image that shows the difference between using your own personal car and a bus. And of course, it's much, much more efficient. It takes less space on the road and less fuel to run. But it isn't very convenient, is it? Because it's not always as fast as we've seen. It can be twice as slow. But there are lessons that we can take from this and implement them in the existing resources. The simplest one is just pulling around in taxis or ride-sharing apps. Sorry. Using data to aggregate people going in the same direction. Going further from this, we can actually create new modes of transportation, which are between taxis and public transportation. This is basically public transportation on demand. It can take you from almost point A to almost point B, but without changing any modes of transportation. It is cheaper than taxis, a bit more expensive than a bus, but much more convenient than both sometimes. The electric scooters that we have seen throughout the city in Bucharest as well recently now have become also a service on demand. This has been an immense trend in the past, well, only 12 months actually, in which time we've seen a few companies spring up. The average distance it's being used is only 2.6 kilometers, so it's usually a last mile solution to be used in conjunction with other modes of transportation. But even so, it is a very good business, and it's very convenient for the users. It is cheap, and you can get unlimited inventory as opposed to taxis. It's instant, and access from the users is very easy. It's very easy to acquire a user, right? Because you can just go to a scooter, open it up with an app, and you're basically a user of that app from that moment on. However, it is limited by geography and weather, and of course, right now, that wouldn't be a solution, would it? So it is one of the modes of alternative transportation which can be used in some areas and only in some times. As a business, it has the best features of marketplace without any downsides. That meaning that the supply, which is the scooters, is unlimited. You can buy as many as you want. There is no drivers involved, so no unions, nothing, much easier to scale. That's why it's a very good business. And this is what disruption looks like. And this is only a span of roughly a year, 14 months actually. Between two companies, now we're seeing more than 20 million in this month, more than 20 million rides a month with the electric scooters just between Bird and Lime, which are the two main companies in the space. This is just amazing, right? In a short span of just one year and a few months, they have grown to be a unicorn. They currently actually have more than 2 billion euros valuation, but they are the fastest startup to ever reach unicorn status in any area. It's only been founded in 2017, and now it has $415 million in funding. Spin, which was a competitor as well, only founded in 2016, end of year, was actually acquired by Ford. So automotive companies, car companies are moving into this sector because they see it's a very big trend, and they have to be involved. Lime, also a very big company, also a unicorn, also $500 million in funding in 1 year. Right, autonomous cars. This is something that the world has dreamt of for a long time, as we can see from this picture. Even in times where they wouldn't imagine that when you would be driving in an autonomous car, you would actually be on your Facebook account or something, right? They were playing Scrabble. Primitives. So it is a very, very real thing. It's not just photos, it's not just ideas. It is happening right now. It is the main driver actually in most M&A transactions catering to ride-sharing or e-hailing. It's a very simple deal, right? They buy the demand through the apps, and then they make the switch to autonomous cars when that technology is available. And that is amazing. The impact will be economical, and it will be in safety as well. And we have big companies doing it. Tesla, Daimler, Uber, Ford, Didi, even Google. These are the main players in the game. All in all, it's 46 companies in the world working on autonomous cars technology at the moment. The total investment up to date, $80 billion. This is happening, and it's going to happen very soon. 2021, it's really 2 years away. There's been a lot of innovation from the past. They imagined a lot. The flying carpet car, which now we call VTOL, which is vertical takeoff and landing. That's a bit more exotic, but it's also being tested right now. It's not going to be mass market. It's just going to be a small part in a multimodal transportation network. It is going to be useful for certain geographies, and the market is expected to reach 13 billion by 2028. I think in 2020, there's a pilot project going to happen in Dubai. And finally, the hyperloop. The hyperloop is, as you may know, the brainchild of Elon Musk. It's basically magnetic levitation in a voided tube. It's not very, very complicated, but it has a big impact. It is the ultimate solution for quick to medium and long-haul distances as well. It can work urbanly instead of a metro, for example, but it can also go cross-continent. It does require a large investment, but even so, it's actually cheaper to run and build than rails. Only problem with that is that it's still an unproven technology, so it's a bit more difficult accessing public money building this. And it's fast, 1,000 kilometers per hour. This is actually a map that was proposed by Elon Musk to build in LA, a hyperloop throughout the city. And of course, for that, we need technology to be able to dig faster and cheaper. That might be useful for our metro as well, I guess, which is never going to happen probably. And then what do you do with all the dirt? Well, they have that covered as well. You turn the dirt into bricks because you want to have a sustainable model which can scale up. And this is how the world could look like in the future, where we could have a hyperloop throughout the continent. Imagine going to London quicker than going to Militar. It's actually possible probably right now as well. Right. So what does all this say? What is the future like? What does it look like? It's probably going to be a context of several technologies which result in a multimodal system. It is going to be city-centric. There will be some need for infrastructure locally, but it's going to probably be mostly privately run, which is good because then we can have more innovation and push it even harder. But the key word in all of this is data. Data is king, and nothing of this could be possible without having the data about the transportation needs of the city. So we've only seen up to now optimization of existing resources. What is coming up in the next few years will be just radically different. That will be the real revolution. And we need this. And the impact of it, the impact is much, much bigger than you would imagine. It's not just about getting from point A to point B. It just changes everything. It changes real estate, right? Because when you free up space from the road, you get more space for parks and green stuff. You don't need parkings, right? 95% of the time the car is standing in a parking lot, and that's a lot of real estate. Take that out of the equation, and then you have a lot of land to build houses or build parks. And then also employment, right? Because you can live much, much further away from your workplace, and then that means that companies can actually access much more talent pool than up to now. The impact is much bigger than you can imagine. It's not just about going to a club easier and faster. It is about our whole society and the whole DNA of the city. Hopefully that's what it's going to look like in the future, and hopefully that will be the biggest change we will see in our generation. and maybe like this.
No questions from the audience? No? No? Anyone? Any question for our guest? We have one question there, in the right. Okay. You thought you would escape, right? Is working? Yes.
Okay, now it's working. So yeah, great.
Where?
Hey, over here. So great talk. I'm just wondering, have you spoken to the mayor in Bucharest about any of this? I mean, do you get any traction from like municipalities, maybe not in Bucharest, but somewhere else in Romania? Is there anything that you're trying to do now to make things better and, you know, make us number 2 or number 3 on the list rather than top?
Well, I mean, for people that know us and know me in the company, we've had our talks with the mayor, so to speak. We're very happy that we managed to block initiatives that were actually blocking technology from the transportation, right? So that's actually a big step for us at this moment. But there are initiatives and there are mayors that are open to it, and we will see more work between the private and the public sector in this area. Now, we in Romania, we have a, let's say, privileged position in the sense that the public transport is so bad that it's very attractive to be privatized, to have technical initiatives to optimize it, right? People use taxis a lot in Bucharest because the public transport is bad. That means that, for example, when the autonomous cars come in, we actually have probably more rides per capita than any other capital in Europe with the taxi. And that can be optimized because you have a lot of data compared to other cities. So I'm optimistic about the future, and hopefully the next mayors will be, let's say, more open to stuff like this. But companies always are.
Other questions? Another one here.
Thank you. Still building up on the previous question, anything that's being done in Romania legislation-wise, for example, for autonomous vehicles, things like insurance, things like that, that would facilitate the things you're talking about?
Well, no, not yet. But there are works being done at European level. And what we've seen with, even with ride-hailing, ride-sharing initiatives, and generally speaking, Romania tends to copy the laws of the EU just because it doesn't want to make a lot of work in creating their own laws, which is good because then you have more or less a unitary approach to stuff. So I'm expecting that we will be following the initiatives that will be happening in the West, and I'm expecting that will happen fast because there's a lot of reasons to promote autonomous cars. It is going to be a shift in, you know, socially accepting it, but the benefits are huge. And well, maybe you would get upset with me for me saying this, but I think the biggest hurdle will be when we will be able to actually ban human drivers. Because until you do that, the combination of autonomous cars and human drivers will actually make traffic worse initially, because they don't really get along, right? But when you ban drivers, the human drivers, that will be a huge shift.
Thank you. Thank you, Mihai. Thank you very much.